Thank you, Larry. Does Los Altos government do an adequate job of noticing the public on matters of importance both to the residents in affected geographic areas and to the populace in general? Now, you probably know that the Brown Act requires the city to notice the residents within 500 feet of a subject property. And I can tell you as a Los Altos Parks, Art and Recreation Commissioner that we do hear frequently when discussions about our parks come up that the neighbors feel that the neighbors don't feel that they have been adequately noticed. So I'm going to ask you if you have had any experience with that, and if you believe that that is adequate, or if an adequate job of noticing is taking place on matters of public importance. Go ahead, Curtis.
I'll begin on that. I spent 6 years on the Planning Commission and 4 on the City Council, and I've heard many of those same stories. People come and say they were not noticed, and I believe that they were not, mistakes were made. But I do know that city staff works very hard. The city takes it very seriously and works very hard to notify every citizen of an important activity that occurs in their neighborhood. So they work very hard on that, and the city has a great track record on that. But now, stepping back as a citizen, do I feel we've done enough? I think there's actually a lot more that we can do. I think the city has yet to take into account and take advantage of many of the new technologies that are available through social network and electronic communications and ways to reach out to the citizens. And I'd like us to see us to augment the state requirements with some of these electronic media. So I think we can do a better job, and I'd like to see us do that as a priority.
Okay,
I would agree with that wholeheartedly. We are the center of technology here in Silicon Valley, and we don't use technology, I think, to the degree that we could to notify residents of activities, of discussions. We don't have two-way dialogue on a lot of the opportunities that residents do have to provide input to the City Council, in my opinion. And I know that people do feel as though they aren't notified when a major activity is taking place, when something is going on the council agenda, on a planning commission agenda, a traffic commission agenda that affects them, and they don't feel as though they can check the council website on a regular basis to find out what the activities are. We need to use a push system of communicating with people, and social networking is a great way to do that.
Can I just add
Sure,
on
go
to
ahead.
that? I agree that we work really hard as a city staff to notify people. I've served 10 years on various commissions, the Historical Commission, the Planning Commission, and now the past 5 years on the City Council. And we notify people in lots of ways. We post notices on sites so that nearby neighbors can see them. We send notices by mail, which is very expensive to do to residents within 500 feet. We put information on our website. We actually do have a push listserv for all of our city and council and commission and committee agendas. All you have to do is go to the website and check the ones that you want to get, and they show up in your mailbox. At least they do for me, because I've checked them all off. So we do have ways of communicating that way. Could we do a better job? Sure, I think we always could, and I think we can use more modern techniques for some of our population. I will remind everyone that we have over 20-some% of our population are seniors. Not all of them are as web savvy as some of our younger generation, and so I think we need to balance the web information with more traditional means. We also advertise in the local Los Altos Town Crier newspaper. So we try to reach out in many, many ways. We can do more, but we also need to be conscious of the cost, particularly of mailings and advertising. So it's a balance.
Jared, go ahead.
I think that this is something I had alluded to earlier. The city of Palo Alto is a city that has, I believe, successfully leveraged information technology to more effectively communicate with their residents. They use an organization called Open City Hall, which incorporates geographic tagging and push services to leverage information technology to, again, cost-effectively communicate with the residents. Mailing something is extremely expensive. When you're talking 10,000 homes in Los Altos, 44 cents a stamp plus printing cost, it's something that is wary on a city budget to mail. This is, again, we do have to keep in mind our demographics here in Los Altos. I think it's most recently 35% of our residents are 55 and over. And I think that The web technologies, while they do apply to a great majority of our residents, are not going to be adequate for everything. However, they are the most cost-effective way to communicate. They allow for two-way communication, and they can notice somebody within 1 mile of anything happening in their home. 500 feet is often a very small radius for something as large as the redevelopment of a park, something as large as traffic issues around a school. The greater community needs to be incorporated in that, and that can more successfully be achieved through smarter technologies, through more effective use of those technologies. And I would wholeheartedly support the implementation of something like this, a pilot program, to see how this does affect our city on large issues like our civic center, on neighborhood issues, and really bringing together the community together in a cost-effective manner.
Would you support expanding the 500-foot radius to something greater?
Due to the cost of mailing, I think that it is something such as mailing. As you increase the radius, the area increases much quicker. So I think it is important to leverage more cost-effective mechanisms than mailing. Increasing the radius beyond 500 feet, I don't think would necessarily be appropriate. And although it's something that I would be interested to hear more about, it is not something that I would personally drive the discussion on, because I think the cost of it would be too high.
Okay, how about the rest of you? What do you think about that?
If you use the right technology, as you were alluding to, Jarrett, then yes, I don't think there's any reason why not to. In fact, if you build the whole thing right, citizens can actually sign up for. I'm actually interested, for example, somebody might say, I'm interested in parks throughout the community. And so that, that could be 5 miles away, for example. And so I think you can do a more broad-based notification if you can use electronic media to do that. And eventually we will, so let's start doing it now.
One of the things that I think is sometimes difficult for folks to navigate on the website is understanding when agendas are posted. So there might be an issue, and I'm thinking specifically of a couple of parks issues that have been coming down the line for the last couple of years. So neighbors might want to know when that issue might be coming before City Council or before one of the other commissions, but they don't always understand the noticing process. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the agendas are posted the Thursday or Friday before the City Council meeting. I think that's right. So if anybody is watching and this is something that there are issues that you're interested in, you might want to go to the Friday before the City Council meetings, which occur the next Tuesday, and take a look on the website at the agendas. It's very simple. It's a very simple process to do. And
Karen, can I just add on to that?
Please do.
As I said, though, we now have a facility on our relatively new website where you can go and sign up to receive those agendas from not only the City Council, from the study sessions, from the closed sessions, from the regular council sessions, but also all of the different 8 commissions agendas and all of the committee agendas. So you can it's a list, you check the boxes of the ones that you want to receive, and then they show up in your inbox, and you have the agenda before you. So if you're interested in parks issues, sign up for the Parks, Arts, and Recreation Commission agendas. If you're interested in general City Council issues, sign up for those. That is a relatively new tool. Before, you did have to go to the website to look at the agendas that were posted, but now it can come to you. And I look at them all the time because I've signed up for every single one.
But that still hides an underlying problem, which is the communication that goes out is still only a few days before the meeting. So unless you make a career and a hobby out of getting involved in the city government, and you leave every Wednesday open for the Parks and Rec and every other Tuesday for City Council and so on, you don't have an adequate notice to rearrange your life schedules to show up for a meeting when something is actually important is going to happen. So if the city acknowledges that, and I think there are steps they could take. They could say, post the draft agenda for a planning commission 2 weeks beforehand. So here's the items that may be on this. Some of them may fall off because they're not ready, but here's a draft agenda. And so you can actually take the steps and be prepared so that when you get the final agenda 3 days before the meeting, you can know whether you need to show up or not. So I think there's improvements we can make. Yeah.
Somewhat prepared.
Agreed.
Okay.
And can I also just add on to that?
Please.
One of the things that's really important to me is to be accessible to the community. And of course, I listen to public comment at the council meeting, but before the council meeting, there is also opportunity to meet with me. I'm happy to meet with anyone who wants to meet on any subject before the council. I also read every email that comes in. I take phone calls. So I think there are ways, besides showing up at the council meeting itself, which is helpful for us to hear, there's many ways to communicate with council members, and particularly with me, to share your views before we vote.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, I think that this is one of the great strengths of the information technology wave that many of the cities around us have been picking up on, and it also leveraging a specific technology allows that all these comments that are brought forward not only educate the council members and the commissioners and the city staff, but it allows these comments to be posted for the broader community. How do you find out about issues on the other side of the fence? How do you hear about what somebody that has a different opinion than you or your immediate friend, how do you hear their opinions until the city council meeting when they get up and speak? These technologies can inform not only the council, not only the staff, but also the broader community, which is very important, I believe.
All right, let's move on to just a couple of eclectic sort of topics. What specific measures would you take to improve the bikeability of Los Altos, especially for kids traveling to and from the downtown area?
Well, I'll start with my kids.
Okay.
If you look, there is the Traffic Commission, and the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee is working on a new bicycle transportation plan. I think it's very important that citizens get involved in that and speak up. If I look at that plan for where we have Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3 pathways, I want to increase all of them. I want the 2s to become 1s and the 3s to become 2s and so on. For example, Los Altos Avenue, where my kids would bike to go to the downtown, that's a location that, frankly, they have to be in the street on basically the side of the street. It's not a bike lane. You might think it is, but it's not a bike lane. I think the city can take some steps to make that a safer street. That's a major thoroughfare to the downtown. I think there are a number of other streets where you can actually admit that you're going to want to collect people on bikes and make those bike lanes on the streets. So you're going to have to spend some money. Some of it is just paint, and that would be an improvement.
Good. Okay, Nancy.
Oh gosh, I've been to a couple of traffic commission meetings where we've talked about a concept called complete streets. It's actually a assembly bill passed by Governor Schwarzenegger, and it moves cities in the direction of actually creating more user-friendly streets that are accessible to all types of residents, whether they be children, bicyclists, seniors, pedestrians, or motorists, or transit riders. And I think we need to look at our streets a little differently. And I'd like to step back actually and look at traffic, our streets, our bicycle safety, our encouragement for people to bicycle, which we do want, on a broader scale, and actually consider that as part of our visioning. Because I think we need to look at it, step back, look at it holistically, look at all of our streets, not just the streets that our children use to get to school.
Okay, Jared.
I remember one of the most interesting days of junior high school for me was a day when one of my classmates was actually struck by a vehicle on his bicycle on San Antonio. And bicycle safety is just, again, highlighted by on the way to schools. We've made good progress thanks to our grant money that the city has received for safer routes to schools, but there's more routes within our city that really need to be highlighted for bicycle safety. Again, San Antonio isn't necessarily a street that everyone would feel comfortable bicycling on, but I think we need to take a look at the broader picture of traffic congestion and how do we get more of our traffic onto the collector streets, making the other streets in our town safer for the bicycle safety, for bicycle traffic. And I think that working with our traffic commissions, using the resources of our volunteers within our city that are more than happy to dedicate their time to progress would be the way to approach this.
Yeah.
And I think the current City Council has supported these initiatives with funding for two major projects. Curtis referred to the bicycle transportation plan update that is currently underway and funded by the current council, and also we have a traffic collector traffic calming master plan that's in development right now, and I'm really looking forward to your input to both of those plans, and encourage you to get involved. Those are being pursued right now, and those were funded by the current council, and I voted for them.
Will the new traffic planner, didn't you say they just hired a new staff member?
We have approved at the last city council meeting, we approved a transportation project manager position that will be, presumably now that it's approved, they will be going out and recruiting and hiring. So that person will be a more senior level manager than we've had before, and their job will be to work through these issues.
Okay, and so it would be to deal specifically with things like this.
Yes, and to work with the Traffic Commission and to work with the city staff and the city council on transportation issues throughout Los Altos.
Okay, good, thank you. Piggybacking on that, there has been a long Stevens Creek Trail study about pursuing a connection through Los Altos, and you don't hear much about that anymore either. But what do the rest of you think about that? I'm sure it's still a viable topic. What's your position on pursuing that?
I think the Stevens Creek Trail is a very important project that's come before our city, where the interest of the greater community really needs to be heard and needs to be weighed in on. I think that hearing from the great silent majority that exists in any community is just as prevalent in ours would be very important as to understanding how we were going to move forward with the Stevens Creek Trail. I would support a trail like this, I believe. Yep.
Bill?
So I served for several years on the Stevens Creek Trail feasibility study of the city. I was the city council representative to the group that included Friends of Stevens Creek Trail, and that group worked through a recommended proposal that was discussed with the city council, although it was not necessarily approved. As a result of that project, Sunnyvale, who had been previously resistant to having any trail through Sunnyvale property, came back to the table, and we've now formed a joint cities task force that includes the cities of Mountain View, Sunnyvale, Los Altos, and Cupertino, to try to figure out what is the best route from the Mountain View terminus to the Cupertino terminus through the cities of Sunnyvale and Los Altos at the south end, along Stevens Creek or in those areas. And those meetings continue. I stepped off that, and Lou Becker is actually the representative on council right now on that task force. So again, another hole that will need to be filled after the election on the council. But I support the Stevens Creek Trail. I think the devil's in the details, as so many of our projects are. So we need to find a route that preserves neighborhood backyard privacy. You know, people don't want the trail right through their private property, and we've said in Los Altos we're not going to do that. There is a lot of water district property in the Sunnyvale side that would be very appropriate for the Stevens Creek Trail. I've been on parts of the trail in Mountain View. It's beautiful. I think they've addressed many of the concerns their residents have had about it in terms of crime and homeless and other issues like that. And I think we can find a way forward, but we need to do it as part of a regional initiative, and that's what we're pursuing.
All right, Nancy.
Yeah, I did some door knocking. I know that Jared has done quite a bit of that as well, and a number of the residents that I spoke with brought this up as a major issue for them. We do have a lot of bicyclists, we do have a lot of hikers and walkers in Los Altos. We're outdoors people, and so it is a very important issue, but where and how much are always the questions that you come down to. I think when Val said you have to have interaction, input, and cohesiveness between the different groups that are affected by the extension of the trail, that's what it's going to boil down to.
Curtis?
So as you mentioned, Lou's going to leave that commission. In case I haven't made it really clear, I'm happy to fill those seats, fill those shoes on that commission. When I was mayor, we met with some neighbors, some homeowners, property owners along Stevens Creek Trail. They were very clear that they did not wish to see the trail in their backyards. And having been along that creek in their backyards, due to zoning decisions made decades ago, is an inappropriate location. But I do feel that Los Altos should play its role in actually connecting that trail between Mountain View, Sunnyvale, and then Cupertino. And I believe we can find a path undoubtedly along our existing streets as presumably part of our new BPAC update. And I think that's a great time for us to get a path down on paper and move it forward, because it's been years, and I think we're not going to get any more information really than we have right now. So I'd like to see us move forward.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, we've reached the point in our debate tonight where we are just about ready to close up. So before we do that, we'd like to give our candidates a few minutes to make some very brief closing comments. So we'll start with Val.
How brief?
Well, we have about 5 minutes, but not for each of you. Five total.
Minutes total.
Okay. So very brief.
I guess the thought I'd like to leave with the Los Altos community is that I've lived here 20 years. I've raised my children here. I love this community. I've been a part of the city government for 10 years, serving on the Historical Commission, the Planning Commission, and now the City Council. And what I'd like you to understand is that I've worked effectively with my colleagues, with city staff, and with residents on a broad range of issues during that time. What I strive for is practical solutions in the long-term interest of the entire community, and to balance desired change with preserving what is cherished. So if you remember one thing about me, that is what I'd like you to do. I've kept my commitments to the community that I made 5 years ago when I was elected to the City Council. My goals are to continue to listen to you and make working on your behalf my top priority. And so I hope that you will take a look at my website, valcarpenter.com, to see my background, and that more than I have time to say now, and the highlights of the accomplishments of the last 5 years. And on November 2nd, please vote. And when you do, please vote for Val.
Thank you, Val. Jared?
I'd like to highlight just a few things. I have worked for the Los Altos Village Association for the last 7 years. I've run many events in our community, some of the largest events in the South Bay area. In fact, the Los Altos Art and Wine Festival has over 100,000 in attendance. When the town crier asked what qualities do you look for in public officials, it was an interesting comment. Many people responded to this question, and when I asked myself this, I thought of 12 qualities: trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. These qualities are qualities that I've grown up with. I'm an Eagle Scout, Troop 37 here in Los Altos, instilled a lot of great qualities that I hold dear to me. When I got in contact with one individual at Cisco Systems from the office of John Chambers, I heard back from the office, and governments, whether they are city, state, or country, can definitely become complacent sometimes and need new vision that is not only obtainable, but has the people such as yourself who have the passion to execute it. This is the key to any company or government success. I have the support of my company that I work for, and I hope that I have your support on November 2nd, or beforehand with your absentee ballot. I truly hope that you do vote for Jarrett Fishpaw.
Thank you. Okay, Nancy.
Well, I have a love of the city as well. I've lived here for 23 years, have raised my children here, and what I'd like to focus on and have you remember about my campaign is that my focus is on the vision of the residents and the community. We need to decide where we want to go and how we're going to get there, where we want to be in 20 years. And some of the issues that are most important to me are traffic, because they affect everyone and they affect the quality of life here in Los Altos, as well as the residents' rights in terms of how our neighborhoods are dealt with as far as the city and zoning concerns. If you have questions about my background, feel free to check my website at carlsonforcouncil.com, and I hope you'll remember to vote for me on November 2nd as well.
Thank you. Curtis.
Thank you very much. I also have lived within the city now for over 22 years, and I've volunteered within this community for over 16 years now, including, of course, serving as appointed on the Planning Commission, Financial Advisory Committee, and then serving a term on the City Council. I had the benefit since then of actually serving outside the City Council and continuing to volunteer with the community and learning what is really important and where was I effective. So echoing the vision that a couple of the other candidates have mentioned here, there are 3 areas that I want to focus on, and they're really all involve a long-term view for where we want to go. The first of those is our downtown and economic viability of our retail establishment there and our civic center, making sure that we're going to lay the foundations for the future generations there. The second one is community building. It's working with some of the organizations we talked about, the schools, the other cities, to deal with some of the hard problems we have with respect to traffic, parking, or Stevens Creek Trail, and bicycling. And the third thing is support of our youth and seniors. Very much a long-term thing. I'm planning on being here for another 25 years, or as long as I can be as a senior. And my children are at public school here. They've grown up here. I want to make sure that we have a city that is continually a great place to raise a family. So please vote for Curtis Cole on your absentee ballot or on November 2nd.
Very good. Okay, thank you. I see we have just about run out of time. So from all of us here at KMVT, I want to thank the candidates and to wish all of you good luck. And to you at home, thank you for joining us as well. I'm Karen Greguras, reminding you to get out on Election Day and vote. Good night.
We did it. We lived.
Success.